An orphan girl fed a starving cat when she had almost nothing to eat herself. But what happened next would defy every law of chance and coincidence. Months later, that same cat would guide her to something so extraordinary, so life-changing, that it would transform her from invisible to unstoppable. This isn't just a story about kindness. It's a story about how one act of unconditional love can unlock a destiny you never knew was waiting for you. And the cat was the key to it all. Her name was Maya, and at 16 years old, she had already learned what it felt like to have absolutely nothing. The orphanage had closed 3 years ago. Budget cuts, they said. Cold words for a cold reality. Maya was shuffled between foster homes, each one worse than the last. The first family seemed promising at first. They had a nice house, a backyard, a dog. But the father had a temper that could turn on a dime. The mother was always exhausted, always irritated, always looking at Maya like she was a burden they'd reluctantly taken on. The younger kids, their biological children, treated her like an intruder. They'd hide her things, tell lies about her to their parents, make sure she knew she didn't belong. After 8 months, they called social services and said it wasn't working out. They said Maya was difficult and ungrateful. They said she had behavioral issues. What they really meant was that she was inconvenient, that raising someone else's child was harder than they'd anticipated, that they'd rather go back to their perfect, uncomplicated life. The second family was worse. The foster mother had a boyfriend who drank too much and touched Maya in ways that made her skin crawl. She tried to tell a school counselor, but the woman didn't believe her. She said Maya was probably just misunderstanding. She said she needed to be more respectful of her foster parents. By the time another caseworker finally intervened, Maya had already decided that telling the truth was pointless. Nobody cared anyway. The third family was the last straw. They were older, retired, taking in foster kids for the government stipend. They fed her the bare minimum, made her do all the housework, and locked her in her room at night, literally locked the door from the outside. She was 16 years old, treated like a prisoner in a stranger's house. When she tried to run away, they called the police and told them she was a delinquent, a troublemaker, a danger to herself and others. That's when the last family simply stopped showing up. No explanation, no goodbye. Just silence. And then, nothing. The caseworker assigned to her case had quit. There was no one to follow up, no one to check on her. The system had swallowed her whole and then spit her out, forgotten. Now she lived in the margins of the city, in abandoned buildings, in alleyways, in the spaces between the world's indifference. She'd learned to move like a ghost, invisible, forgettable, unnoticed. Because when you're invisible, people can't hurt you. When you're invisible, you don't have to feel the sting of rejection over and over again. When you're invisible, you can pretend that maybe you never existed at all, and that would be fine. That would be better. But invisibility had a price. The hunger was relentless. It wasn't the kind of hunger you feel for a few hours before dinner. It was the kind that lived in your bones, that woke you up at 3 a.m. with your stomach twisted into knots, that made your vision blur and your hands shake. It was the kind of hunger that made you do things you never thought you'd do. Steal, beg, dig through garbage. Compromise yourself in ways that left you feeling hollow and ashamed. Some days, she'd find half-eaten food in dumpsters behind restaurants, a half-eaten sandwich, a few fries still warm in a cardboard container, someone's leftover pasta. She'd eat it without hesitation, without disgust, grateful for every bite. Other days, she'd go without anything at all, She'd drink water from public fountains and pretend it was enough. She'd sit in libraries where it was warm and try to ignore the gnawing emptiness in her stomach. She'd watch other teenagers eating lunch at school, teenagers who had homes and parents and futures, and feel a rage so intense it frightened her. She was getting weaker. She could feel it in the way her legs barely carried her up the stairs of the abandoned warehouse where she slept. The warehouse was a 5-story building that had been condemned years ago. Most people avoided it, which made it perfect for Maya. She'd claimed the 3rd floor as her territory, hidden away in a corner room where the windows were boarded up and the darkness was absolute. She'd found an old mattress, stained and smelling of mildew, but still better than the concrete floor. She'd gathered blankets and old coats from dumpsters. She'd created a small sanctuary in the ruins. But even that sanctuary wasn't safe from the effects of starvation. She could feel the weakness in the way her thoughts moved slowly, like wading through mud. Concentration was nearly impossible. She'd try to read books from the library, but the words would blur together. She'd try to solve problems in her head, but her mind would just stop, like her brain was shutting down to conserve energy. She could feel it in the hollowness that had settled into her chest, not just physical, but something deeper. A spiritual emptiness. A sense that maybe the world was right. Maybe she really was worthless. Maybe she really didn't deserve to survive. There were nights when she'd lie on that filthy mattress and think about just giving up. About walking into traffic. About swallowing pills she could steal from a pharmacy. About finding a way to make the pain stop permanently. She'd never actually tried to do it, but the thoughts were always there, lurking in the back of her mind. A dark companion, an old friend. And then came the night that changed everything. It was late, past midnight, and Maya was searching through the dumpsters behind a small restaurant on 5th Street. The restaurant was called Marco's, a family-owned Italian place that had been there for decades. The owner, Marco himself, was a kind man. He'd sometimes leave food out intentionally for the homeless people who frequented the area. Not much, usually just day-old bread or unsold pastries, but enough to show that he saw them, that he cared. Tonight, Maya was hoping for one of Marco's typical discards. But tonight, she got lucky. She found half a rotisserie chicken, still warm, and some bread that was only slightly stale. Her hands were shaking as she tore into it, not bothering to find a clean place to sit. She just crouched behind the dumpster and ate like an animal, grateful for every bite. The chicken was salty and rich and the most delicious thing she'd tasted in weeks. She ate so fast she barely chewed, terrified that someone would come and take it away from her. That's when she heard it. A sound so small, so fragile, that at first she thought she'd imagined it. A mewing. Desperate, broken, pitiful. It was the sound of a creature in agony. A sound that cut through the noise of the city and pierced directly into Maya's chest. Maya froze mid-bite. She looked around the dark alley, her eyes adjusting to the shadows. The alley was narrow and cramped, lined with overflowing dumpsters and piles of trash. The smell was overwhelming, rotting food, stale grease, human waste. Rats scurried in the darkness, cockroaches scattered when she moved. And there, huddled in the corner near a pile of rotting cardboard boxes, was a cat. But not just any cat. This was a creature that looked like it had been through hell and back. Its fur was matted and filthy, hanging in clumps from its skeletal frame. Its ribs were visible even through the tangled mess of hair. You could count them like a xylophone. Its tail was bent at an odd angle, probably broken. One of its ears was torn. Its paws were raw and bleeding. But its eyes, large amber eyes, were what stopped Maya cold. They were dull with suffering, dull with hunger, dull with the kind of despair that comes from being abandoned and forgotten. But they were looking directly at Maya. And in that gaze, there was something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. The cat mewed again, softer this time, almost like a question, like it was asking for help, like it was saying, "Please, I'm suffering. I'm alone. Does anyone see me?" Maya's first instinct was survival. She had barely enough food for herself. She was starving. Every calorie mattered. Every bite was the difference between making it through another day and collapsing. Every morsel was fuel for her body, which was already running on fumes. Feeding this cat would be insane. It would be suicide. It would be throwing away her own survival for a creature that didn't even know her. But then she looked into those amber eyes, and she saw something that mirrored her own reflection back at her. She saw suffering. She saw loneliness. She saw a creature that had been abandoned and forgotten, just like her. She saw someone, something, that the world had decided didn't matter. She saw herself. And in that moment, something shifted inside Maya. Something fundamental. Something that would change the trajectory of her entire life. She was still hungry. She was still weak. She was still invisible and forgotten and utterly alone. She was still a 16-year-old girl with no future and no hope. But this cat, this starving, broken creature, was even more invisible than she was, even more forgotten, even more alone. And unlike Maya, the cat had no ability to fend for itself. It couldn't go to a library to get warm. It couldn't steal food from a store. It couldn't survive on its own. But Maya could help it. And in helping it, maybe, just maybe, Maya could help herself. She was still hungry. She was still weak. She was still invisible and forgotten and utterly alone. But this cat, this starving, broken creature, was even more invisible than she was, even more forgotten, even more alone. And unlike Maya, the cat had no ability to fend for itself. Maya tore the rotisserie chicken in half. She set her portion aside, smaller now, much smaller, and broke the other half into pieces for the cat. She placed the food on a piece of cardboard, sliding it toward the frightened animal. Her stomach was already protesting, already crying out in hunger. She could feel the weakness intensifying, the dizziness starting to creep in at the edges of her vision. The cat hesitated for only a moment. It was clearly terrified, clearly used to being kicked and chased and hurt. But the smell of food was too much to resist. It lunged at the chicken with desperate hunger, eating so frantically that Maya worried it would choke. She watched as the cat ate every last morsel, licking the cardboard clean, searching for crumbs that weren't there. The animal ate like it hadn't eaten in weeks, like it had forgotten what food even tasted like. When it was done, the cat looked up at Maya again, and this time, something was different in those amber eyes. Not hope exactly. Both of them were too broken for that. But something, a flicker of recognition, a silent acknowledgement. You understand. You know what it's like. You're like me. Maya shared her bread with the cat too, breaking it into small pieces. She watched as the animal ate slowly this time, more carefully, as if it was beginning to trust that there would be more food, that it wouldn't have to fight for survival tonight. That maybe, just maybe, this strange human wouldn't hurt it. When the cat was finished, it moved closer to Maya. Not aggressively, not fearfully, just closer. It sat down a few feet away from her, curled into a tight ball, and closed its eyes. Within minutes, the cat was asleep. Deeply, peacefully asleep in a way that suggested it hadn't felt safe enough to sleep in a very long time. Maya sat in that alley for hours, watching the cat sleep. Her own stomach was still growling. She was still hungry, hungrier now than before because she'd given away half her food. She was still weak and broken and invisible. But she had done something that night that she hadn't done in years. She had chosen someone else's survival over her own. She had chosen compassion over self-preservation. She had chosen love over fear. She had chosen to matter to someone, even if that someone was just a starving cat in a dark alley. And in that moment, in that dark alley, with a starving cat finally resting peacefully beside her, Maya felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Something she wasn't sure she'd ever actually had. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she mattered. She felt like maybe her life had purpose. She felt like maybe, in a world that had rejected her over and over again, there was at least one creature that needed her, that depended on her, that saw her. But what Maya didn't know was that this one act of kindness would trigger a chain of events that would lead her to something she never thought possible. Something that would transform her from invisible to unstoppable. Something that would prove that sacrifice and love don't just change lives. They unlock destinies. The cat stayed with Maya that night, and the next night, and the night after that. She named him Ash, because his fur was the color of cold ashes, and because he seemed to carry the weight of a burned-out life. Within a week, Ash had become her constant companion. He followed her everywhere. Through the streets of the city, into the abandoned warehouse, through the alleys where she searched for food. He was still skeletal, still weak, still bearing the scars of whatever horrors he'd endured before Maya found him. But something had shifted in him. There was a light in those amber eyes now, a will to survive. And Maya was sacrificing everything to keep that light alive. Every day she searched for food, not just for herself anymore, but for Ash too. She'd wake up in the warehouse, her stomach already aching with hunger. And she'd think about the cat. She'd think about how his ribs were still too visible, how his coat was still matted and dull, how he needed more nutrition than she could possibly provide. So she gave him more anyway. She'd find a single sandwich in a dumpster and give Ash 3/4 of it. She'd discover a can of tuna, somehow still sealed, and feed it all to the cat, eating only the scraps he left behind. She'd go days with nothing but water and the occasional piece of fruit she'd steal from a street vendor's cart. Her body was paying the price. The weakness became more pronounced. Her vision would blur at random moments. Her hands would shake so badly that sometimes she'd drop things. There was a constant ringing in her ears, a sound like distant bells that never stopped. Her hair was falling out in clumps. Her skin had taken on a grayish pallor, stretched tight over her bones like parchment. She knew she was dying. Not dramatically, not all at once. But slowly, quietly, her body was shutting down. The starvation was catching up with her, and she knew it. But she didn't stop. Every morning, she'd wake up and think about Ash. She'd look over at the corner where he slept, curled up on the old mattress beside her, and she'd feel a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with physical heat. That cat needed her. That cat depended on her. For the first time in her life, Maya mattered to someone. And she would die before she let that go. There were nights when the hunger was so intense that Maya would lie awake, her stomach twisted into knots, her mind playing tricks on her. She'd imagine feasts, enormous spreads of food, tables laden with everything she could possibly want. She'd imagine sitting down and eating until she was full. until her body felt normal again, until the constant ache went away. She'd imagined what it would feel like to not be hungry. But then Ash would shift in his sleep, would move closer to her, would rest his head on her chest, and the hunger would fade into the background. It would become bearable. It would become worth it. One night, about 3 weeks after she'd found Ash, Maya collapsed. She'd been out searching for food all day. It was winter now. The temperature had dropped significantly, and the dumpsters were less reliable. Restaurants threw out less food in the cold months. Fewer people were on the streets, which meant fewer opportunities to find discarded meals. She'd walked for hours, her legs barely supporting her, her vision swimming in and out of focus. She'd found half a sandwich and a few French fries. She'd given most of it to Ash. On the way back to the warehouse, her legs simply gave out. She collapsed on the sidewalk, unable to move, unable to even call for help. She just lay there on the cold concrete, staring up at the gray winter sky, thinking that this was it. This was how it would end. She'd starved to death on a sidewalk that nobody cared about, and nobody would even notice. But then she felt something warm against her face. Ash was there, licking her cheek, mewing frantically. The cat was frantic with worry, pacing back and forth, pushing against her with his small body, trying to get her to move. And somehow, that desperation gave Maya strength. She couldn't leave Ash alone. She couldn't abandon him the way everyone had abandoned her. She forced herself to sit up. She forced herself to stand, leaning heavily against a brick wall. She forced herself to move, one agonizing step at a time, back toward the warehouse. Ash stayed close the entire way, occasionally looking back to make sure she was still following. It took her nearly 2 hours to walk a distance that normally took 20 minutes. But she made it. She made it back to the warehouse, back to the third floor, back to the mattress. And she collapsed again, this time on the bed, unable to move for hours. Ash curled up against her, his small body pressed against hers, and she realized something in that moment. The cat wasn't just dependent on her. She was dependent on him too. He was the only reason she was still alive. He was the only reason she bothered to get up in the morning. He was the only reason she kept searching for food, kept moving, kept trying. They were keeping each other alive. The bond between them was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. It transcended the normal relationship between a human and a pet. There was something almost supernatural about it, something that defied logic and reason. She'd read about animals that could sense when humans were in danger, animals that seemed to have an almost psychic connection with their owners. She'd always dismissed those stories as sentimental nonsense. But now she was living it. Ash seemed to know when Maya was about to have a panic attack. He'd come and sit on her lap, purring so loudly that the vibrations would calm her down. He seemed to know when she was in pain. He'd position himself against her injured areas, as if his presence could somehow heal her wounds. He seemed to know when she was losing hope. He'd do something silly, pounce on a dust mote, chase his own tail, knock over an empty can, and somehow it would make her laugh. And when she laughed, the world didn't seem quite so dark. There was one particular night that Maya would never forget. It was the dead of winter now, so cold that she could see her breath in the warehouse. She'd found nothing to eat that day. Nothing. She'd searched every dumpster, every alley, every place she knew. Everything was frozen solid or picked clean. She'd gone to bed with an empty stomach, and Ash had gone to bed hungry too. That night, Maya made a decision. She decided that she couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't keep sacrificing her own survival for a cat. She couldn't keep starving herself while trying to feed an animal. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't logical. It was time to give up. She decided that in the morning, she would take Ash to an animal shelter. She would leave him there, where they could take care of him properly, where he'd have food and warmth and safety. And then she didn't know what she would do. Maybe she'd find a warm place to die. Maybe she'd finally give in to the voices in her head that told her that giving up was the only rational choice. She lay on the mattress that night, her body racked with sobs, her heart breaking at the thought of losing Ash. This cat had become everything to her. He was her reason to live. He was her purpose. He was her love. But she couldn't let him starve with her. As she cried, Ash climbed onto her chest. He looked directly into her eyes, those amber eyes that had first captured her heart in that dark alley. And he meowed. Not his usual soft mew, but a long, loud, insistent meow. Like he was trying to tell her something. Like he was trying to communicate across the barrier between human and animal. Trying to make her understand something crucial. And then, to Maya's absolute shock, Ash got up and walked toward the window. The window was boarded up, but there was a small gap where one of the boards had come loose. Ash squeezed through that gap and disappeared into the night. Maya's heart stopped. She scrambled off the mattress and rushed to the window, peering through the gap. She could see Ash on the fire escape, silhouetted against the streetlights below. He was looking back at her, meowing again. And then he turned and ran down the fire escape, disappearing into the darkness. For a moment, Maya couldn't breathe. Had Ash abandoned her? After everything, had he decided that he didn't need her after all? The thought was unbearable. She wanted to scream. She wanted to die right there in that moment. But then something stopped her. Some instinct. Some voice inside her that said, "Follow him. Trust him." With trembling hands, Maya pulled on her coat, a thin, ragged thing that barely kept out the cold. She squeezed through the gap in the window and made her way down the fire escape. The metal was icy under her hands, slippery and treacherous. But she moved carefully, slowly, following the direction Ash had gone. When she reached the ground level, she looked around. The street was empty and silent, blanketed in snow. She could see Ash's paw prints in the snow, leading down the street. Without thinking, without questioning, Maya followed them. Ash led her through the sleeping city, down streets she'd never been down before, past buildings she'd never noticed. They walked for what felt like hours. Maya's body was screaming in protest. She was so hungry, so weak, so cold. Every step felt like it might be her last. But she kept moving. She kept following the cat. And then Ash stopped. They were in front of a small restaurant. It was closed, dark, shuttered for the night. But there was something different about this place. There was a small alcove by the back door, and in that alcove, there was a box that hadn't been there before. A box that was filled with food, fresh food, real food. There were cans of cat food, cans of soup, containers of rice and beans, loaves of bread. There was a note attached to the box, written in careful handwriting. For the hungry ones. Please take what you need. Maya stood there in the snow, staring at the box, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. She looked down at Ash, who was purring and rubbing against her legs. The cat had known. Somehow, Ash had known that this food was here. Ash had known exactly where to lead her. It was impossible. It was illogical. It defied every law of chance and coincidence. But it was real. Maya and Ash ate that night. They ate real food for the first time in months. They ate until they were full, actually full, not just less hungry. And as they ate, Maya felt something shift inside her, something fundamental, something that told her that this wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't luck. This was destiny. The cat wasn't just following her. The cat was guiding her. And there was something extraordinary about this bond between them. Something that would prove, in time, that this wasn't just about survival. This was about a connection that transcended the normal world. This was about a love so powerful that it could defy logic, defy chance, and unlock miracles. Over the next week, Ash led Maya to the box behind the restaurant 3 more times. Each time, it was filled with fresh food. Each time, there was a new note. The handwriting was always the same, careful, deliberate, elegant. The messages were always brief but profound. You are seen. You are worthy. Keep going. Better days are coming. Your love for that cat is changing the world. Maya's mind spiraled with questions. Who was leaving this food? How did they know about her and Ash? Were they watching her? Were they following them? The rational part of her brain screamed that this was dangerous, that she should stay away, that this could be a trap. But the part of her that had learned to trust Ash's instincts told her something different. It told her that whoever was leaving this food meant no harm. It told her that this was an act of kindness, pure and simple. And besides, she was too hungry to care about danger anymore. With the food came a transformation. Maya's body, starved for so long, began to recover. The constant dizziness faded. Her vision cleared. The ringing in her ears stopped. Her hair stopped falling out. Color returned to her skin. Within 2 weeks, she barely recognized herself in the reflection of a store window. And Ash transformed too. His ribs began to disappear under a coat of soft, healthy fur. His eyes became brighter, more alert. His movements became more fluid, more graceful. The broken tail began to heal. The torn ear stood up straighter. He was becoming the cat he was always meant to be. But the mysterious food boxes weren't the only strange occurrences. One morning, Maya woke up to find a sleeping bag outside the warehouse. A high-quality, expensive one. The kind that was designed for extreme cold. There was a note, for warmth on the coldest nights. A few days later, she found a backpack filled with first aid supplies, warm clothes, and toiletries. The note said, "Take care of yourself. You deserve it." Then came a stack of books. Real books, not the worn paperbacks she'd been finding in dumpsters. Books about science, history, philosophy, literature. Each one had a note inside the front cover with a personal message. One book had a note that read, "I think you'll like this one. It's about a girl who refused to give up, even when the world told her she should." Maya began to piece together a picture of her mysterious benefactor. Whoever this person was, they were educated. They were thoughtful. They were paying close attention to her life. They knew things about her, things she'd never told anyone. They knew that she was intelligent. They knew that she loved reading. They knew that she was suffering, and they cared enough to do something about it. One night, about 3 weeks after the first food box appeared, Maya decided to stake out the restaurant. She wanted to see who was leaving the boxes. She wanted to know who this mysterious person was. She wanted to understand why they were helping her. She and Ash hid in the shadows across the street from the restaurant, watching and waiting. Hours passed. The night grew colder. Maya's body ached from sitting still for so long. But she didn't move. She couldn't move. She had to know. And then, around midnight, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was a woman, tall, elegant, with silver hair that caught the streetlight. She was wearing an expensive coat and carrying a large box. She moved with the grace of someone who had lived a privileged life, someone who was used to getting what she wanted. But there was something else in her movements, too. A sadness, a heaviness, a burden that she carried in her shoulders. The woman approached the alcove by the restaurant's back door and set down the box. She pulled out a note and tucked it into the box. And then, to Maya's shock, she looked directly at the spot where Maya was hiding. Their eyes met across the darkness. For a moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. It was like the entire world had stopped, frozen in this single moment of connection. And then the woman smiled. It was a sad smile, tinged with recognition, as if she understood something about Maya that Maya didn't understand about herself. The woman turned and walked away, disappearing back into the darkness. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. She waited until she was certain the woman was gone, and then she crept across the street to the box. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out the note. "I know you've been watching. I know you want to understand. Come to the address below tomorrow at noon. Come alone. Bring the cat. And please, trust me." The address was for a building downtown, an upscale neighborhood, the kind of place where Maya had never set foot, where people like her didn't belong. She spent the entire night wrestling with the decision. This could be a trap. This could be dangerous. This could be the worst decision she'd ever made. But it could also be an opportunity. It could be a chance to understand what was happening to her. It could be a chance to find out why someone cared enough to help her. By morning, she'd made her decision. At noon the next day, Maya stood outside the building. It was a beautiful old brownstone, meticulously maintained, with flower boxes in the windows and a polished brass door knocker. She looked down at Ash, who was purring softly in her arms. The cat didn't seem nervous. If anything, Ash seemed to know exactly where they were supposed to be. Maya took a deep breath and knocked on the door. It opened immediately, as if the woman had been waiting right on the other side. She was even more striking up close. Her silver hair was cut in an elegant bob, her eyes were a piercing blue, her skin was smooth and unlined, despite what Maya guessed was an advanced age. She was wearing an expensive dress, and there was jewelry on her wrists and fingers. Real jewelry, Maya could tell, not costume pieces. "Hello, Maya," the woman said, and her voice was warm and gentle. "I'm so glad you came. My name is Eleanor Ashford, and I've been waiting a very long time to meet you." Maya's mouth went dry. "How do you know my name? I never told you my name." Eleanor smiled. "No, you didn't. But I know many things about you, Maya. I know that you've been living on the streets for almost 3 years. I know that you've survived things that would have broken most people. I know that you have a capacity for love and compassion that is extraordinary. And I know that you and this cat," she gestured to Ash, "are connected in a way that defies explanation." "Why?" Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why are you helping me? Why do you care?" Eleanor's expression became sad. She stepped back and gestured for Maya to enter the house. "Come inside. I have a story to tell you, a story that will explain everything." The inside of Eleanor's house was like stepping into another world. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, paintings on the walls that looked like they belonged in a museum, furniture that was clearly antique and valuable, books, thousands of books, lining the walls of a massive library. It was the kind of place that Maya had only seen in magazines and movies. It was beautiful and intimidating and utterly overwhelming. Eleanor led her to a sitting room and gestured for Maya to sit on a velvet sofa. A housekeeper appeared with hot chocolate and pastries, real pastries, not day-old bread from a dumpster. Maya ate slowly, trying not to seem desperate, trying not to stuff her face the way her starving body wanted to. Eleanor sat across from her, watching with an expression that was part sadness, part admiration. "I lost a daughter once," Eleanor began. Her name was Sophie. She was brilliant, kind, compassionate. She spent her life helping people, volunteering at shelters, working with at-risk youth, trying to make the world a better place. She was everything a parent could hope for. Eleanor paused, and Maya could see the pain in her eyes. When Sophie was 23 years old, she was killed in a car accident, a drunk driver. It was senseless and cruel and utterly unfair. And I fell apart. For years I was lost in my grief. I had money, I had comfort, I had everything except the one thing that mattered: my daughter. Eleanor looked directly at Maya. About 6 months ago, I had a dream. In the dream, Sophie came to me. She was standing in a dark alley, and there was a girl who looked like she'd been through hell. And Sophie was showing me this girl, telling me that this was where I needed to focus my energy. This was how I could honor her memory, by helping someone like you. "That's just a dream," Maya said softly. "That doesn't mean anything." "That's what I thought too," Eleanor said. "But then, the very next day, I saw you. I was driving through the city, and I saw a girl, you, searching through a dumpster behind Marco's restaurant. I saw the desperation in your movements, the hopelessness in your posture. And I felt Sophie's presence so strongly in that moment that I had to pull over." Eleanor leaned forward. "I've been watching you ever since. I've watched you sacrifice your own survival for that cat. I've watched you choose love over self-preservation. I've watched you become the kind of person that my daughter always believed the world needed more of. And I realized that this was no accident. This was Sophie, reaching out from wherever she is, telling me that I needed to help you." Maya's eyes were filled with tears. "You're saying that your dead daughter led you to me?" "I'm saying that love transcends death," Eleanor said quietly. "I'm saying that the connections we make with people, the love we have for them, doesn't disappear just because they're gone. It becomes part of us. It guides us. It shows us the way." Eleanor stood up and walked to a shelf. She pulled down a photograph and handed it to Maya. It showed a young woman with Eleanor's blue eyes and a warm smile. The woman was holding a cat, a black cat with amber eyes. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The cat in the photograph looked exactly like Ash. Exactly. "That's impossible," Maya whispered. "That cat would have to be decades old." "I know," Eleanor said. "I've been trying to understand it myself. But I think that cat is special, Maya. I think that cat is connected to my daughter somehow. I think that when my daughter died, some part of her, some essence of her love and her mission, became bound to that cat. And that cat has been waiting for someone like you, someone who needed to learn what my daughter always knew, that love is the most powerful force in the universe." Eleanor sat back down. "I don't expect you to believe me. I barely believe it myself. But what I do know is this: you and that cat are meant to be together. And I want to help you. I want to give you a chance at a real life. I want to help you become everything you're capable of becoming." Maya looked down at Ash, who was purring softly in her lap. The cat's amber eyes seemed to glow in the light of the sitting room. And in those eyes, Maya saw something that she'd been seeing all along, but hadn't quite understood. She saw love. Not the conditional, transactional love that humans offered, but pure, unconditional, transcendent love. She saw purpose. This cat wasn't just a pet. This cat was a guide. This cat was showing her the way. She saw destiny. And she understood finally that everything that had happened to her, all the suffering, all the pain, all the loss, had been leading her to this moment. "What do you want me to do?" Maya asked Eleanor. Eleanor smiled. "I want you to stay here. I want you to go back to school. I want you to heal. I want you to become the person you were always meant to be. And I want you to help me understand what's happening with that cat. Because I have a feeling, Maya, that this is just the beginning. I have a feeling that you and Ash are going to change the world." Maya sat in Eleanor's elegant sitting room, feeling like she was in a dream. The warmth of the fire crackling in the fireplace, the smell of fresh pastries still lingering in the air, and the calming presence of Ash curled up on her lap created a cocoon of safety she had never known before. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope, a flicker of possibility that life could be different. But uncertainty gnawed at her. "I don't know if I can go back to school," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been out of the system for so long. What if I can't keep up? What if I fail?" Eleanor leaned forward, her expression gentle but firm. "Maya, failure is part of growth. It's how we learn. You've already shown incredible resilience, and I believe you have the strength to rise above your circumstances. You have a chance to rewrite your story. Trust in yourself." Maya felt the weight of those words settle over her like a warm blanket. Eleanor was offering her an opportunity, a lifeline, and for once, she felt like she could grasp it. But doubt still lingered. What if I can't handle it? What if I don't belong there? "You will belong," Eleanor assured her. "You have a unique perspective, and your experiences will shape who you are in ways that others may not understand. You have a voice that deserves to be heard." Maya glanced down at Ash, who was watching her intently. There was a wisdom in his amber eyes that seemed to say, "You can do this." "Okay," Maya said, determination rising in her chest. "I'll give it a try. But what about Ash? I can't leave him behind." Eleanor smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Of course not. Ash will be with you every step of the way. If you choose to go back to school, I'll help you find a place that allows pets. You're a package deal." Relief washed over Maya. Ash had been her anchor through the darkest times, and the thought of being separated from him was unbearable. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. Over the next few days, Maya and Eleanor worked together. Eleanor helped Maya fill out applications for school, and they searched for programs that would accommodate her needs, including support for students who had experienced homelessness. Maya learned to advocate for herself, to ask for what she needed, and to believe that she deserved a second chance. As they worked, Eleanor shared stories about Sophie, her late daughter, who had been an exceptional student and a passionate advocate for others. Sophie believed that every person had the potential to change the world, no matter their background. She used to say, "It's not where you start that matters, it's where you choose to go." That's the spirit I see in you, Maya. Maya felt inspired by Eleanor's stories. She could see the love and pride in Eleanor's eyes as she spoke about Sophie. It was clear that Eleanor's mission was to honor her daughter's legacy by helping others like Maya. When the application process was complete, Maya felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had submitted her paperwork to a local community college that had a strong reputation for supporting students from diverse backgrounds. They had a program specifically designed for students who had experienced adversity, and they were known for their understanding and compassion. A few weeks later, as winter turned to spring, Maya received the letter. Her heart raced as she tore open the envelope. Acceptance. She had been accepted into the program. Tears of joy streamed down her face as the reality of it sank in. She was going back to school. She was getting a chance to reclaim her future. Eleanor embraced her tightly. "I knew you could do it. You're going to shine, Maya." With Ash by her side, Maya began her new journey. On the first day of classes, she felt a whirlwind of emotions. Excitement, fear, hope, and doubt all swirled within her. Entering the campus felt surreal, like stepping into a world that had always seemed out of reach. As she walked through the halls, she caught glimpses of students laughing, studying, and chatting. It was a world full of potential and possibility, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she had a chance to be part of it. Her first class was an introductory course in psychology. Maya sat at the back of the lecture hall, nervously tapping her pencil against her notebook. The professor, a kind-looking woman with a warm smile, began discussing the fundamentals of human behavior. Maya listened intently, fascinated by the concepts and ideas being presented. After class, she walked to the library, eager to dig deeper into the subject. As she entered, she felt a sense of belonging wash over her. The smell of books, the quiet hum of students studying, and the abundance of resources made her heart swell with gratitude. She was finally where she belonged. As the weeks passed, Maya settled into her routine. She attended classes, studied in the library, and made friends with some of her classmates. They were kind and welcoming, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was part of a community. Eleanor remained a constant support, checking in with her often and providing encouragement. She introduced Maya to other mentors and resources, helping her navigate the challenges of school life. But even with the newfound stability, there were still moments of struggle. There were days when the weight of her past threatened to pull her back down. The memories of the orphanage, the foster homes, and the streets haunted her. One particularly tough day, after a challenging lecture on childhood trauma, Maya found herself sitting on a bench outside, tears streaming down her face. Ash was by her side, his warm presence a source of comfort. Eleanor found her there, her heart aching at the sight of Maya's pain. She sat down beside her and placed a hand on Maya's back, offering silent support. "You're doing so well, Maya," Eleanor said gently. "You're brave for facing your past. It's a part of you, but it doesn't define you." Maya wiped her tears, feeling the warmth of Eleanor's words. "I just feel so overwhelmed sometimes, like I'm not strong enough to keep going." "But you are," Eleanor insisted. "You've already come so far. Remember why you're here. You're not just surviving anymore. You're thriving. Let that strength guide you." With Eleanor's encouragement, Maya took a deep breath and wiped her eyes. She realized that it was okay to feel vulnerable. It was okay to acknowledge her struggles. What mattered was that she was trying. She was fighting for a better future. As the semester progressed, Maya discovered a passion for psychology. She found herself drawn to the idea of helping others who had faced similar challenges. She wanted to be a voice for those who felt invisible, just as she once had. One day, in a particularly inspiring lecture, the professor spoke about the importance of empathy in healing. "Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another," she explained. It's a powerful tool in therapy and a vital part of building connections with others. Maya felt a spark ignite within her. She knew, without a doubt, that she wanted to become a psychologist. She wanted to help others heal just as she was healing. With Ash always by her side, Maya began to envision a future filled with hope, purpose, and love. She was no longer just surviving. She was becoming a force for change. But as she continued her journey, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to discover about Ash. The connection they shared was unlike anything she had ever experienced, and she felt a pull to understand his past. One evening, as she sat in her room studying, she took a moment to look at Ash, who was curled up on her bed. "What's your story, Ash?" she mused aloud. "How did you end up in that alley with me?" Ash looked up at her, his amber eyes glinting in the soft light. Maya resolved to find answers. She would dig deeper into Ash's origins, uncovering the mysteries surrounding her beloved companion. Their journey together was just beginning, and she was determined to explore every facet of their bond. As spring blossomed around her, bringing warmth and color back to the world, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her days at school were filled with inspiration, and her connection with Ash deepened with each passing moment. But the questions about his past lingered like shadows at the edges of her mind. Determined to uncover the truth, Maya began researching local animal shelters and rescue organizations. She wanted to find out if Ash had been reported missing, if anyone was looking for him. She felt a sense of responsibility, not just to Ash, but to the journey they shared. During her breaks between classes, she visited various shelters in the area. She spoke with staff members, sharing Ash's story and asking if they had any records of a cat matching his description. Most of them were sympathetic and offered to help, but after several visits, she hit a dead end. There were no reports of a missing cat that resembled Ash. One afternoon, feeling defeated, Maya returned to Eleanor's home. She found Eleanor in the library, surrounded by stacks of books. The room was filled with the comforting scent of paper and leather, and Maya felt a sense of calm wash over her. "Hey, Eleanor," she called softly, her voice tinged with frustration. Eleanor looked up, concern etched on her face. "What's wrong, dear?" Maya sank into a chair across from her. "I've been to 5 different shelters, and no one has any record of Ash. I feel like I'm running in circles." Eleanor set her book aside and leaned forward. "What do you think is holding you back, Maya? You seem deeply connected to Ash, but it sounds like you're searching for something outside yourself." Maya sighed, her fingers tracing the edge of the wooden table. "I guess I just want to understand. He's been my lifeline, and I want to know where he came from. I want to know if there's someone out there who misses him." Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes we search for answers outside because we're afraid to confront the unknown within ourselves. But perhaps the key lies in understanding your own bond with Ash first." Maya considered Eleanor's words. She realized that the connection she shared with Ash was so profound that it transcended the ordinary relationship between a pet and owner. It was as if they were 2 souls intertwined, each filling a void in the other's life. "Maybe I should start with what I know about him," Maya said, her mind racing with ideas. "I can try to retrace our steps from that night I found him. If I can figure out where he came from, maybe I'll find something, anything, that connects him to his past." Eleanor smiled, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "That sounds like a wonderful plan. Follow your instincts, Maya. They've guided you this far." The next day, armed with a notepad and a map of the city, Maya set out to retrace her steps. She began at the alley where she had found Ash, the memories flooding back as she walked through the familiar streets. The sounds of the city were alive around her. Cars honking, people laughing, children playing. But she felt a heaviness in her chest as she approached the spot where their lives had intertwined. When she arrived at the alley, she knelt down, running her fingers over the cracked pavement. "This is where you were, Ash," she murmured, looking around. "I wish you could tell me what happened before I found you." Ash sat beside her, his amber eyes scanning their surroundings as if he could sense the weight of her questions. Maya took a deep breath, allowing her memories to guide her. She recalled the dumpster where she had found the half-eaten food, the cardboard box where she had first spotted Ash, curled up and frightened. She began to search the area, looking for any clues, any signs of where he might have come from. As she turned the corner, she noticed something unusual, a small, weathered building that she hadn't seen before. The paint was peeling and the windows were dusty, but a flicker of movement caught her eye. She approached cautiously, peering through the grimy glass. Inside, she spotted a few cats lounging on shelves and a sign that read, "Cat Rescue and Adoption Center." Her heart raced. Could it be possible that Ash had come from here? Maya walked inside, greeted by the warm, welcoming atmosphere. The air was filled with the faint scent of cat litter and the soft sound of purring. A friendly woman behind the counter looked up and smiled. "Welcome. How can I help you today?" Maya hesitated, her heart pounding. "I found a cat a few weeks ago, and I think he might have come from here. His name is Ash. He looks like he belongs to someone." The woman's expression shifted to one of concern. "I'm sorry to hear that. We get a lot of strays, but we also have many cats who are adopted and loved. Do you have a photo?" Maya pulled out her phone and showed her a picture of Ash. The woman's eyes widened. "Oh, yes, I remember this cat. His name was Oliver, and he was part of a litter abandoned near the old factory down the street. We took him in, but he was always a bit skittish. I'm so glad to see he's found a home." Maya felt a rush of emotions. "Do you know who abandoned him? Is there someone looking for him?" The woman shook her head sadly. "No, I'm afraid not. We never found the owners, and we were worried for the kitten's safety. We managed to find homes for most of them. But Oliver was always a bit different. He was reserved and preferred to keep to himself." Maya's heart ached for Ash's past. "Do you know how he ended up in that alley?" "He must have slipped out during one of our adoption events," the woman replied. "He was always curious about the outside world. I'm sorry we couldn't keep him safer." Maya felt a mix of relief and sorrow. She had found answers, but the truth of Ash's past was bittersweet. "Thank you for telling me. I'm so grateful to have him in my life. He means everything to me." The woman smiled warmly. "It's clear he's found someone who truly cares for him. If you ever need anything, food, supplies, or even just someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to reach out." Maya nodded, feeling a sense of connection to this place and the people who devoted their lives to helping animals like Ash. As she left the rescue center, she looked down at Ash, who was watching her intently. "Looks like you weren't just a stray after all," she said softly. "You had people who cared about you." Ash purred, nuzzling against her leg, and Maya felt a surge of love for him. Their bond had only grown stronger, and she knew that together they could navigate the complexities of their pasts. Returning to Eleanor's house, Maya shared what she had discovered. Eleanor listened intently, her expression a mixture of pride and empathy. "You've taken a significant step, Maya. Understanding his past can help you both heal and grow. Maya nodded, feeling a sense of closure. She had uncovered the truth about Ash, but she also realized that their journey together was just beginning. They were forging a new path, one filled with love, purpose, and the promise of a brighter future. As the weeks turned into months, Maya embraced her new life with Ash by her side. She immersed herself in her studies, her passion for psychology growing stronger with each passing day. She began to excel in her classes, her confidence blossoming as she found her voice. She also started volunteering at the local cat rescue, helping to care for the animals and assisting with adoption events. It was a way for her to give back, to honor Ash's journey and the love that had brought them together. With every cat she helped, every story she heard, Maya felt a sense of purpose. She was becoming the person she had always wanted to be, a voice for the voiceless, a champion for those who felt invisible. And through it all, Ash remained her constant companion. He was more than just a pet. He was her partner in crime, her source of comfort, and her unwavering support. One evening, as they cuddled on the couch, Maya looked down at Ash and smiled. "You know, you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. I can't imagine what I would have done without you." Ash purred in response, nuzzling closer to her, and Maya felt a warmth spread through her heart. In that moment, she understood that their bond was more than just a connection between a girl and her cat. It was a partnership, a shared journey of healing and love. Together, they were rewriting their stories, turning pain into purpose, loneliness into belonging. As the sun set outside, casting a warm glow over the room, Maya realized that she was no longer just a girl who had nothing. She was a survivor, a warrior, and a beacon of hope for others who needed it. And she knew that with Ash by her side, she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As summer approached, Maya found joy in her studies and volunteering with Ash by her side. However, as finals loomed, anxiety crept in. Despite her progress, the fear of failure weighed heavily on her. One evening, after a long day of studying, Maya sank into the couch, feeling overwhelmed. "What if I don't pass?" she confessed to Ash, who purred softly beside her. That night, she struggled to sleep, her worries swirling in her mind. The day of the final exam arrived, and Maya rushed to class, feeling unprepared. But as she sat down and began the test, she remembered Ash's presence and Eleanor's encouragement. With determination, she focused on the questions and poured her heart into her answers. When grades were posted, relief washed over her. She had earned an A. Overjoyed, she rushed home to share the news with Eleanor and Ash, grateful for their support. However, new challenges awaited as Maya received an invitation for a summer internship at a mental health clinic. Excited but apprehensive, she took the opportunity. Wanting to gain experience, but fearing she might overwhelm herself. As she immersed herself in the internship, the pressure mounted. Long hours and emotional intensity began to take their toll. And one day, after a particularly demanding session, Maya stepped outside, feeling suffocated by anxiety. Realizing she needed help, she reached out to Eleanor. They met, and Maya expressed her fears of failing at the internship. Eleanor reminded her that taking care of herself was essential. "You can't pour from an empty cup," she advised. Taking Eleanor's words to heart, Maya set boundaries at work and prioritized self-care. With Ash by her side, she learned to navigate her responsibilities while maintaining balance. As summer progressed, Maya embraced her internship and studies with renewed clarity and intention. Together with Ash, she faced challenges head-on, realizing that she was not just surviving, she was thriving.